Hi, this is Annie Grace, the author of This Naked Mind and the creator of Alcohol Experiment, a 30-day challenge to just sort of interrupt your patterns. You can find it for free at alcoholexperiment.com. And today I have a question from Janice. And Janice says, my question is, for a long time, I've been a horrible, nasty drinker to my husband, who's also a big drinker, and to his family. And I've gotten worse and worse with loneliness. I live in a small town. It's the town where my husband was born. We get together with my in-laws, and I would be outside the circle of conversation if I wasn't drinking. I watched my husband's glass never be empty, and it would always get messy. I would get annoyed even more if he was leaving me out because I wasn't drinking, and it slowly got worse. I did abstain for 7 whole years, but I drank on holidays, and that was moderate for me, but I slid back in 4 or 5 years ago. Then mid-November, I went back to polishing off 3 bottles of wine at night, and sometimes more during the day. The big turning point was, now this has moved to the next generation, and I have seen this with my kids. And so I really want to stop drinking, but I don't know how to combat the loneliness. I just want to overcome loneliness. And actually, I'm going to answer I get this question twice. There's another question, and it says, hi, Annie, I have a very empty life, no partner, no kids. My mom is 85. She's the closest person to me. I dread the time when she's not here with me. I feel so unfulfilled that I drink to numb the void inside me, and I cannot see a way out of this repetitive behavior. So loneliness is a tough one because, loneliness means, I think so often when we feel lonely, we are looking for someone else or something else to come and pick us up or connect with us. And especially when we feel lonely, we often feel down on ourselves, or maybe that we don't deserve to have connections or companionship. So we don't necessarily have, the desire to go after them ourselves. We sometimes think that some of these things will just get fixed, and, we feel victimized by being lonely. We feel like loneliness has happened to us, and we're so alone in this, and we can't really pick ourselves out of it. But there's a few things that I think are really helpful. And one main thing that I found really helpful. So there was a period in my life when I had graduated from college with all my friends, but guess what? My job that I took was in the college town that we lived in. All of my friends moved away, 100% of them. And so I was left in this town with this job that I was really excited about. I really wanted to work for this company. It was in an advertising agency. My degree was in marketing. I was super excited. But all of my friends had left, and there I was by myself in this town, completely, totally alone. And, I didn't want to be going to college parties anymore, not only because I didn't really know any college students, but also just because I didn't really feel comfortable. My coworkers were all married with children. I was, 22 years old, and so I couldn't really relate to them. And outside, I remember leaving the office and just feeling like this crippling sense of the entire night stretching out before me, because there was really nothing for me to do. And I felt very, very lonely. And I had read something somewhere, you need to give what you are seeking to get. So if you want love in your life, you become loving. If you want people to do things for you, you start to do things for other people. And so I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And I decided to go and take a shot at volunteering. And so I did a few different volunteer things. I did a food bank here and there, but the most profound thing that I did is I signed up at a homeless shelter. And so 2 to 3 nights a week, I would go to this homeless shelter, and for 3 to 4 hours, I would check people in who needed a place to stay. And to check them in, you had to do certain criteria, like they had to meet certain criteria or whatever, and you did an intake form, and you'd welcome them in, you'd provide them sheets and whatever the case is, and then check the next person in. So you'd sit at this desk, and you were often with another person at the desk for 3 to 4 hours. And what this did, it was phenomenal, the change that happened in my life because of this. A few things. Number one, when you are checking people into a homeless shelter, you cannot help but feeling grateful for the fact that, yeah, maybe I don't have any friends, but I have a roof over my head. I have a job. I have the ability to go to the grocery store and buy myself food. And that attitude of changing to gratitude rather than feeling sorry for myself, which is this place I was really stuck in. I was stuck in feeling like, oh, geez, everybody left, and here I'm by myself, and blah, blah, blah. And like just feeling so sorry for myself, to really actually feeling very grateful for what was going on in my life was huge. It was completely profound. It changed my entire perspective. And then I started making really, really cool and unique friendships. People are not homeless because you have this idea of what a homeless person is going to be like because of conditioning or whatever. And I just ended up meeting some of the coolest people who had been down on their luck, or who something very bizarre had happened, or who, yes, were addicted to something and couldn't get out of it, but they were just amazing people. They just had, this condition of being addicted because of the fact they'd been taking these addictive substances, and they were stuck in these patterns. And so I ended up meeting some amazing people in that regard. And then also the people who are volunteering alongside of you when you're volunteering, they're incredible people. They're not people who are, out at the bar or doing this other stuff, and not saying that people out at the bar aren't incredible people, but people who are saying, what I want to do with my night this evening is give it back to other people. I want to be completely selfless and give time back. You end up meeting phenomenal human beings when you're volunteering. And there are volunteer opportunities everywhere. And I have to say that in order for me to cure my loneliness at that point in my life, this was huge. And I've gone on to do all sorts of volunteering ever since. I ended up moving to a new city, and I found an opportunity to prepare taxes in Spanish for people. And because I spoke Spanish, and that was a huge need in the city, I ended up doing things even internationally, where we would go to different, went to Honduras and installed some clean water wells in order to get people clean water. And just these things of really connecting with people who I didn't know, who I've since formed lifelong relationships because we were there doing the same thing. And one of the biggest human needs that we have is this need to contribute. And it so often gets, glossed over by our other needs, our needs for significance, or our need to feel loved, or our need to, these other things that are really valid. But actually this need to contribute, when you're contributing, when you're pouring yourself out for other human beings and giving completely of yourself, all that other stuff happens. You become loved, you become significant, you get filled up in ways that you can't even imagine. And so I would just encourage anybody who's really struggling with loneliness, especially loneliness because, you have a lot of time in your life where you're not drinking, is to find a volunteer opportunity. I mean, there's so many, and you could volunteer, at a animal shelter. You could volunteer, picking up trash with people. You could volunteer, at a food bank or at a homeless shelter. And there's always opportunities. There's always a need. And it, by far in my life, has been the absolute cure for one of the loneliest periods of my life. So it's a great question. And I think that, getting out of your cycle more than anything, and connecting with people who are doing a very similar thing, you're not, when you're checking people in and giving them breathalyzers behind, the homeless shelter desk, you're not drinking. And that's a really important thing. So find something where your volunteering would be, exclusive of alcohol, and you can find a way to give back. So anyway, such an excellent question. Thank you so much. This has been Annie Grace with This Naked Mind podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can learn more at thisnakedmind.com. And please remember to rate, review, and subscribe, as it really helps us spread the word.